Okay, good morning. Welcome to today's meeting of the Employment Committee, the first in the council year. Turning to item 1 on the agenda today, which is the appointment of chairman. Can I please request a formal nomination for the role of chairman, please?
I nominate Helen Butler for the role of chair.
And a seconder for that? Are there any more nominations? Okay, in that case, Miss Helen Butler is appointed. Sorry, apologies. If we could just have a vote on that. So all in favour? And against? Lovely. So Helen Butler, you're appointed chair of the Employment Committee for this year, ending with the council meeting in 2026. Would you like to take a seat?
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay? Amazing, brilliant. Okay, so welcome to the first meeting in this municipal year of the Employment Committee. The meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube and will also be available for viewing after the meeting. The link is available on the council's website. As this is the first meeting of the committee in the council term, it'd be useful for members and officers to introduce themselves. So if I may, I'll go first. I'm Helen Butler from the Shropshire Division and I'm the lead cabinet member for resources. If we could just go around clockwise, if that's okay. Thank you.
Andrew Innes, I'm the newly elected councillor for Melton East.
Okay, I'm Peter Morris from Loughborough North.
Ulredkin, Corn and Barrow.
Pleased to meet you all. My name's Graham Cook and I represent Cosby and County Thorpe.
Good morning, Councillor Michael Charlesworth here since 2005 for East Wixton.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Joel Mear from Loughborough East.
Ossie O'Shea from Ruby Ratby Midfield Head.
Good morning, Councillor Brian Lovegrove, the Beaver Division.
Yeah, my name's Lucy Littlefair. I'm the Assistant Director for People, Property and Transformation, and HR, Health and Safety, Learning Development come under, my services.
I'm Andrew Stewart. I'm the Head of People Services, which looks after learning and development, HR and health and safety. Thank you.
Hi, Damien Buckley, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you very much. Can I please ask that all members and officers have their microphone on mute until they wish or are invited to speak, and that officers on Teams show their camera only when presenting reports. So I have received apologies for absence from Mr. Thorpe this morning. Right, so item 2 is the election of Vice Chairman. Could I please ask for nominations for the role of Vice Chairman? So if it's possible, I'd like to propose Paul Woodkin. We go to, oh, sorry.
I propose John Mayer.
Oh, have we got a seconder? Sorry.
Happy to second that.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got to go to a ballot now, so there'll be some paperwork coming around in a moment. Thank you.
Okay, so I can confirm that we've got 5 votes for Mr. Rudkin, 1 abstention, and is it 3 votes for Mr. Meir. So Mr. Rudkin's elected Vice Chairman.
Thank you. So item 3 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of February 2025. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of February 2025 to be taken as read, confirmed and signed. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Right, item 4 is question time. I have received no questions from members of the public. Item 5 is questions asked by members under Standing Order 7(3) and 7(5). I've received no questions from members. Item 6, to advise of any other items which the Chairman has decided to take as urgent elsewhere on the agenda. There are no urgent items. Item 7, declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda. Does anyone have any interest in respect of any items on the agenda? Thank you. Item 8 is presentation of petitions under Standing Order 35. There are no petitions. Our first substantive item today is the People Strategy 2024 to 2028 overview. This is on pages 7 to 32 of your agenda packs. Lucy Littlefair, Assistant Director for People, Property and Transformation, will present this item. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Damien, are you able to pull the actual presentation up itself while I'm just giving a bit of an introduction? Okay, so the Employment Committee has got an important role in relation to the Council's workforce, their terms, conditions, and making sure that effective arrangements are in place to ensure that we comply with employment legislation. The committee also helps to ensure that the organisation can attract and retain a committed workforce who work to our values and deliver excellent services to the communities within Leicestershire. As many of you are new to the committee today, I thought it would be appropriate to provide you with an overview of the Council's People Strategy, as it sets out how the organisation intends to manage and develop its workforce, ensuring that the appropriate support and focus is given to all aspects of the employment relationship, including the development of staff, the management of the performance and productivity of our staff, recruitment and retention, and helping to support their well-being. The committee helped to hold officers to account and ensure that the organisation can attract and retain a committed workforce who work to our values and deliver excellent services to the communities within Leicestershire. What I propose to do is just take you through the people strategy and on pertinent slides, kind of just draw out some of the kind of themes. And happy to take questions, Chair, as you want to run it, either as we go through or at the end. Yeah, either approach is fine. Okay. So, want to Damien move? Right, so it's a 4-year strategy running from 2024 to 2028, which is revised annually to ensure that the initiatives and programmes of work remain relevant within the organisation. Slide 3, set of principles, that we're working to, and slide 4 within your pack, it's got the information about our operating context, which you'll have all read. Slide 5 has got some of the information about our last staff survey that was completed in 2023, where 93.3% of respondents rated LCC as a good employer. So indicating that as an employer, we've got a positive relationship with our staff. Again, slide 7. So this slide provides an overview of our current values, our objectives, our leadership behaviours, and our working practice principles. And then with slide 9, we provide an overview of our workforce. So we have approximately 6,000 staff, and And this data includes information about the gender makeup, ethnicity, age, sexual orientation, disability status, and whether individuals are on full or part-time contracts. And we collect this data for 3 reasons. Firstly, to comply with legislative requirements, namely the Public Sector Equality Duty, which was introduced by the Equality Act 2010. Recording and reporting workforce equality data helps us to demonstrate our compliance with that duty. The second reason is to ensure that as one of the largest employers in Leicestershire, our workforce are representative of the communities that they serve. We often say that we want our staff to think like a taxpayer and act like a resident. So it's important that our staff reflect the profile of our residents, and capturing this data enables us to do that. Thirdly, it helps us with our workforce planning. For example, the age profile of our workforce helps us to plan for retirements, as well as encourage the employment of young people across the age groups and further through. Do you want to move on? Okay, so the presentation and the people strategy covers 4 different themes within that strategy: leadership management and workforce development, recruitment, retention and workforce planning, performance management, and organisational culture. I'll just give you a little overview on each one. So in terms of leadership management and workforce development, this includes work around developing our aspiring and new managers, implementing a new L&D system, and our apprenticeship strategy. Andrew's going to be taking you through a specific report on this theme later in the agenda, so you'll have some opportunities if you want to ask some specific questions, particularly on that theme. We then move to performance management. So this theme is about the competence of our staff and about driving performance improvements at all levels of the organisation. And you'll see some of the kind of initiatives that we've got in place. We then look at recruitment, retention and workforce planning. This is about the system that we use to recruit, about the information about who we employ and who applies for roles within the organisations, and about our projects to improve LCC's branding and attract young people into the organisation, and think of council as a place where potentially they could start their careers. Organisational culture is the 4th theme, and this includes various themes around maybe our employer accreditations, for example, like the Armed Forces Covenant, where LCC supports the Armed Forces community through either direct employment or of their families. And it's relevant to your duties on the committee and your legal duties, for example, the sexual safety in the workforce, reasonable adjustments for disabled employees, or our responsibilities maybe towards care leavers. The strategy then finishes with information about well-being, particularly how that supports, and my next kind of presentation and paper will talk to you about how that supports absence management, and then finally information about EDI and about our aim for an inclusive and equitable culture. So that's the end of the presentation on the people strategy. Just to confirm that the accompanying report details the roadmap and the plan for the committee, whether you're receiving updates on the different themes at the quarterly meeting. So this meeting is leadership and management, and then we'll move on to the next meeting, which I think is performance management. Thank you.
It's called organisational culture, sorry.
So thank you, Chair. That's the end of my presentation, and I can confirm that the report and the presentation are for noting by the committee.
Thank you. Yeah, can I take your question?
Thank you very much, Chair. Excellent report. That's very well presented and some very interesting information. It's a big job. I always say in any business or organisation there are 2 key factors. One is finance, and the second biggest one is HR. So fantastic report. I like the people strategy and the golden thread that runs through everything. The equality, diversity and inclusion, a key part of your employment strategy. Do you have any challenges with the churn of staff with such a large number? Do you have any particular challenges in recruitment of new staff? Thank you.
We do, yeah, absolutely. And although our actual turnover, I think as recently sits around the kind of 13-14%, and you've got to bear in mind that that would be kind of natural leavers and retirement, things like that. But there are certain roles, yes, within the organisation, which probably is reflecting the open market as well. It's not just a public sector issue, it's a private sector issue as well, where it's simply there are too few qualified, skilled, experienced professionals, for example, engineers, that we're all after the same individuals, and so for some of that, the branding around LCC, the really kind of being able to get across about why would you work for the council, and about kind of our ethics, really about it is about serving those communities, so that maybe that's that little hook in to draw people in to come and work for us, because actually it's not just, we're not a profit making organisation. There's a reason why you tend to work for the council. So but it's tricky sometimes. Yeah, it really is.
Thank you. Sorry, can I take your question, please?
Yeah, just a couple of questions on our workforce page. I mean, I imagine most of these are driven by national legislation, like gender, ethnicity, and disability, of course. But gender identity and sexual orientation, I mean, the vast majority of people didn't want to answer gender identity and sexual orientation. Are they mandatory requirements nationally, or are they local things that we've put in? Because, I mean, we've got rid of the religion, although we still ask that when we do consultations with the public. But are those two necessary in there? What purpose do they serve?
So all this data is important so that we understand what our workforce is made up of as part of it. There is a duty for gender reassignment as part of that, to understand, as part of our public sector equality duty, to understand whether there is an issue within our employment as part of that, because we are subject to the same laws, employment laws, and it is there to protect us as an employer against claims of discrimination and other elements of it. The reasons for the low declaration rate is that gender identity is a new field that we have entered within the system, which had happened within the last couple of years, whereas the other areas are much more established from that perspective, because that's what we've been working on as part of our public equality duty.
They're all mandatory national wise, or?
Well, it's the 8 protected characteristics as defined under the Equality Act, and gender reassignment and sexual orientation are included within that.
But I mean, all these questions, not just those, but all of them are voluntary. People can prefer not to say,
yes,
can't they? Yeah. And that's my other point was on age groups. You mentioned bringing people through the organisation, yet 45% of our employees are over 50. So that doesn't quite tally with bringing people through, unless we don't know how many of those have been here for many years, though. I think of one, of course, but how does that balance out? I mean, these people, do they live in Leicestershire? Do you bring a lot of outside people in to fill positions because of skills shortages, or?
So I suppose this represents our current age profile within Leicestershire County Council at the moment, and we have got an ageing workforce, absolutely, and we do need to bring younger people into the workforce, just to be able to do our workforce planning as people kind of exit. I think it would be fair to say that the UK market since the pandemic, we do have people who do definitely work outside, live outside of county. At the moment we obviously hold that information because on the payroll system we've got everybody's addresses and their postcodes. So if we needed to, we could see where our staff actually live, in relation to Leicestershire. But it is a definite theme, both with the apprenticeship strategy and more generally working with schools and colleges and universities about remarketing Leicestershire County Council's local government in general as an option for young people. I don't think they think about it in terms of careers. Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't understand what the council does unless maybe you've touched it either from an adult social care perspective, caring for a vulnerable adult, elderly person, or via children, or maybe registering a pothole. Actually, I don't think we do at the moment. We've got some work to do with making understand in terms of the wealth of careers that we've got actually within the council. Everything from solicitors, isn't it, right the way through, in terms of home care staff, to procurement, to finance, to there's so many different kind of options. Yeah.
My only other comment, and you probably can't or shouldn't answer this, was with an ageing workforce and so few younger people here, it must put a huge burden on the pension fund going forward. You probably can't answer that.
Thank you for your question. Mr. In.
Thank you. I'm interested. There's a lot of information that you've gathered for our workforce across a number of different areas. What two things? There seems to be a lot of a big percentage of no information. So does that skew the figures? Does that actually give you the information that you need? And the second question is, what actions do you actually take as a result of the information? So are you actually reading into the data to say, I now need to take a different action in, for example, recruitment or whatever, as a result of the data that you've recovered?
So to answer your first question, and it relates a little bit to what Andrew said, is that obviously our HR system stores that data, and whilst we have campaigns for our kind of longer serving employees where we've got missing data and missing fields, it is down to them logging onto that system, and updating that information, which some staff simply don't do. Some of them are working out, not everybody's, obviously a huge proportion of our staff aren't office based, they're not working at computers every day, aren't they? And actually it's way down their priority list, I would imagine, to actually log onto that system. For all our new recruits that have come in, then obviously that data is captured at the point of recruitment. It's used on their kind of application, through the application process. They can still decide whether to declare and let us know or not, but it does then feed through. So we do have those campaigns. In terms of what do we do with that information, I think it goes back to my second point really about why do we store that, and that some of that is about making sure that our workforce is representative of the communities that we serve, and that where we do, and you'll get these reports through as you sit on the committee around where we're actually we'll provide reports in terms of how well we're doing in terms of maybe the kind of gender pay equality and all sorts of things, so that how well we're performing in terms of some of those metrics. We may, for example, if there was a particular protected characteristic where, for example, we hadn't got as many kind of managers, from that protected characteristic, we may kind of encourage applicants maybe to put themselves forward, for our aspiring managers program, that type of thing. But in terms of the kind of, we do some kind of targeted support around kind of females, in terms of women into management, in terms of ethnic minorities. So what we try to do is just where the data is telling us something where it's not maybe representative, we'll encourage, just the same as we encourage all our staff, but maybe people to come forward and put themselves forward for training, development opportunities, mentoring, coaching, those types of things, which might mean that they're able to kind of access the opportunities easily. But ultimately, it's an employee's choice.
I think that's the important thing, and I think you've said right at the end, the most important thing, it should be for all employees, regardless of background. we should be encouraging all employees to do the best that they can. I think that's an important factor that we need to really focus on, that we're giving everybody the opportunities that they deserve, really.
Thank you. So the next point, members are asked to note the roadmap of the current people strategy 2024 to 2028. Does everybody agree? Thank you. Item 10 on the agenda is the Workforce Report 2024 to 2028. This is on pages 33 to 42 of your agenda packs. Lucy Littlefair will present this item. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So while Damien's just pulling that one up. So the purpose of this report is to provide a committee with an overview of the Council's workforce and related information and performance measures. First slide shows the overall headcount for Leicestershire County Council. You can see that between January and August 2024, the overall headcount was fairly consistent, between 5,900 and 6,000. And then you see that there's a kind of a dip, and that reduction is due to the 2p transfer of some of our school food staff to private providers. And then what you see as we go into the early stages of 2025, the overall headcount in the first part of this year stabilises at around 5,900. So that gives the committee kind of just an idea of the size of our workforce. We then also use something called FTE, so that's the full-time equivalent metric. It's something that's used a lot within the public sector, particularly when you're reporting absence. But we also use it to understand the overall full-time, which we class as 37 hours, capacity within the organisation. And then slide 2 shows how our headcount and FTE are split across our different departments, with our frontline services, children's and adults, being the largest. You might wonder why corporate resources is high, and that's because school food sits within corporate resources and they employ a significant number of staff. Turnover last year was 13%, the year before was 15%, with the UK public sector averages also sitting around 15%. We've then provided you with some information around absence. And this is where we and the rest of the public sector use the FTE metric the most. We have a target of 7.5 days sickness per FTE, and we're currently at 8.5 days per FTE, with wide variations across departments, services and roles. For example, it would not be relevant to compare a home care assistant with a solicitor or an accountant or one of our highways engineers, because not just within the public sector, but within the private sector, average absence rates across those roles, do vary significantly. In terms of minimising absences and managing the impact on services and our operations, it has always been and remains one of the biggest workforce challenges for the council. We capture the reasons for absence, either at the point that somebody calls in sick, they submit a doctor's certificate, or we complete their return to work interview. The not disclosed category is either used when someone is undergoing kind of investigations into their poor health, for example, that they're kind of, visiting various consultants. It's used if the other categories kind of don't cover the reason for their absence, or in some occasions, we do get managers who forget to record that field within there. So there's kind of 3 different reasons really why that not disclosed category is used. Stress, depression and mental health has always been the highest reason for absence within LCC and across the public sectors. There are different theories on why this is the case, with many of our roles are demanding and involve working directly with people, supporting vulnerable communities, managing crises, handling difficult situations. But it is, and it will continually be, a theme at this employment committee as we continue to explore as to why those levels still remain so high. Reasons in terms of the 7.5 FTE, we know that that within the public sector, that is always higher than in the private sector. And having worked as an HR professional in both the public and the private sector, I'd suggest that there are a number of factors that contribute to the difference. I think there's the operating context, types and nature of our different roles, as well as our terms and conditions, all feed into why there's that difference between the public and the private sector. And then finally, we just show you in terms of our annual performance reviews about our completion rates. Unfortunately, they are often, when managers are faced with kind of operational challenges and, on a day-to-day basis deciding how to, where to focus their time, then unfortunately those annual performance reviews maybe aren't, performed on time. But what we do have the confidence is that kind of weekly, monthly one-to-ones are undertaken with our staff so that they can have that ongoing dialogue with them about their performance. But it's yearly annual performance reviews, which sometimes our managers, aren't as good at scheduling and actually completing and then recording on the system. And that's a focus for us, going forward. And then the last slide is really just set out in terms of some of the key activity since our last employment committee. And that's around the fact that around this time of year, we start to plan for our biannual staff survey, which will be launched in the summertime. We want to bring through, because we think it would be of interest to you, some anonymised data around the types of disciplinary cases, grievance cases. It'll give you a sense of our employee relations more widely, and that's something that we'd like to bring through to the committee going forward. We've had a new learning management system go live. We're actually, I'm fairly new in post, although not new to the County Council, and so is Andrew, and we just feel it's appropriate to do a bit of a review of our HR services to make sure that they're meeting the needs of our managers going forward, and that's underway. And then we're now just starting to plan for the year 2 projects, which will be informed by this committee on the people strategy.
Thank you. You have a question?
Thanks for the report. It's really good information. I think you hinted at it as a big disappointment on the annual performance reviews. In my experience, employees, it's not a one-way thing, it's a two-way thing. Employees look forward to talking about their past performance, talking about development. You talk about one-to-ones, etc. I guess they're not recorded. It's important that these annual performance reviews are done, carried out religiously, because it's a very important part of an employee's life, actually. I know myself, and I'm sure we all know, we like to sit and talk about how we've got on. Some people get very nervous, but it's important that they have that opportunity to speak one-to-one with their manager. So I would be very interested, and I don't know if you can answer now, what actions you're going to take to make sure that we get, below 60% is poor. I've got to say, we've got to improve that performance, and I'd like to know what actions are going to be taken.
Thank you. I would imagine that as HR professionals, that you'd expect us to totally agree with you on this subject to a certain extent. They are really, really important. That ongoing dialogue is, but people do look forward. It's that precious time, isn't it, with your line manager, particularly I think if you're keen to progress within your career, and there might be some training that you want to talk about, or development opportunities, all those types of things. We are absolutely on board with the view that these performance appraisals are the types of things that we're putting in place is around escalation. Yeah, so that we've got the data. Everybody's got a line manager. We're making sure that their line managers are aware that they haven't completed those reviews, and that will escalate up within the organisation. So we will be able to report through to the committee if it's something that's of interest to you. Are there particular services, particular departments where this is causing concerns? The other piece of work that we've done is we've quite recently carried out an exercise with some of our services, maybe our more frontline services, about what could we do to make the process a little bit easier, for them. Because again, you'll hear this time and again. We employ such a range of different people across so many different roles, that the type of appraisal that one individual might need and the in-depth discussions they might have might be completely different, to another. So we're trying to work with our services so that it isn't just necessarily a kind of a one size fits all, you fill this labour intensive format, but it's about the richness of that conversation and making sure that they happen and that something's recorded and some kind of next steps and those types of things.
Thank you.
Can I, just to build on that, you said that you've recently installed a new HR system. Does that not have a system for managing performance reviews? My experience is that it can be automated, so there's reminders come through to both the employee and the manager.
Yes, we've got an HR and payroll system now that has been in about 3 or 4 years, but it's the new learning and management system, that it's in place. So we're looking at the capabilities of that and how we can do some more automation, actually, so that people do get those reminders, and maybe it would help everyone if those then were flagged up with kind of their line manager. So it's a piece of work that we're undertaking at the moment, with learning and development very much kind of at the front of it, as to what that system capability is.
Thank you.
Can I refer back to the LCC headcount and FTE figures? I noticed that during 2024, the average was around about, 4,800, 200, 300, 4,820 to 50 maybe. And then suddenly in 2025, it goes to quite a consistent 4,900 figure. What changed to do that?
Yeah, so I think some of this fits with our recruitment difficulties. So you'll see from the breakdown, I think in my previous report, of our mix of full-time and part-time staff, is that we employ significant amounts of part-time individuals, and that works for lots and lots of people. But the trend that we're seeing is that as we are either two different things. One, as you're struggling to recruit, actually our existing staff are more willing to take on more hours. So where some of our part-timers are now transitioning to full-time. And I also think that's, if you turn it on, look at it from the other side, is that we're being asked by our staff actually for more hours. Just because cost of living crisis, all sorts of various different reasons. So it will be interesting to see whether that's a trend actually that continues, where people are working more hours within the organisation, partly at our request and also at kind of their request.
Thank you. Sorry, just go over there. Sorry, did you have a question? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to concentrate on the absences, actually. I was going to talk on the performance review, but I think Ms. Innes over there has covered that off. Adult social care, quite a significant amount of sickness in that department, and I sat on that committee for quite some time. But most of our care providers are outsourced now, so they won't be in the statistics. So is that a lot of office-based people out on sick?
I think it's a variety, across obviously from our social workers, both in children's and in adults, that when you see that deep breakdown of detail, that's it's a highly stressful job, and we do get, there are certain roles within the organisation which for us within Leicestershire and across other councils, they just have higher sickness rates. Whether that's the demands of the job, the situation we're in, the pressures, the financial kind of pressures that we're on as an organisation, asking people to do more with less, those types of things. So yes, it tends to be in some of those. Whilst the home care is largely kind of outsourced, we still do have an awful lot of what we class as kind of frontline workers that are out there doing very demanding jobs, and often you see the trend. I think the other thing worth noting is that we've got about a 60-40 split of long-term absence and short-term absence. With long-term being the 60%. So if people are off, tends to be with kind of more critical kind of issues, do you know what I mean, that's taken a longer time to resolve, rather than people taking the odd day here, there and everywhere. So adults is very similar to children's in terms of the dynamics and the kind of workforce profile.
But I've got one up further on, but I'll let Mr. Innes come in with his final question.
Sorry, I've got Mr. Lovegrove next, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, a very good report. Lots of very detailed information and very useful for us. First one was on the workforce numbers. They may have dropped down by TUPE and other things and contracted out services. That cost will come into the contracted out, and TUPE across staff will come to a different cost centre for the county council. So the costs don't go away. It's just on this area of employed staff, isn't it? That was the point to make. And then also just to say, it's a sad statistic, but it's good that it's recognised, the amount of people who are being honest about their mental health issues. It's for a long time been put under the carpet and not recognised as a serious issue, but it is a very serious issue. Many people don't own up to it, and so it's almost not pleasing to see that some people recognise that the mental health issues are there. But with the numbers being so high and people now reporting it, are the council taking extra steps to support people with mental health and making it easier for them to come forward to report those? Because there is a stigma around that area. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's quite a sad statistic, really, isn't it? But I'm proud actually of our wellbeing offering that we have to staff that supports them. Two fronts really. One, we actually have a wellbeing board which works with public health, because they're part of the council, so that's really, really helpful, so we can kind of dip into their expertise, as well as within health and safety we have a specific wellbeing service where we employ our own counsellors, and we have done for an awful long time, 10+ years, because what we were finding was that members of staff simply weren't able to access or to afford private counselling or through their GPs, which was often either meaning that they were struggling at work or they were off work. We were unable to kind of get them the help and get them back to work. And the majority of our staff that use our wellbeing service are still in work. So they reach out at the point that they might be going into crisis, or they know that they're struggling, and we're able to give them that support. I'm not saying, just the same as we've got a little bit of a waiting list, if you like, to a certain extent, but they know it's there, and there's a wealth of information on the intranet and signposting them to various different things, because I think we do feel that it's good business sense, if nothing else, isn't it, to a certain extent, to make sure you've got a happy workforce and you're doing everything you can to kind of support them and kind of prevent them from going absent. We also, I think, via that wellbeing service, we get, it's totally confidential and kind of anonymised, but we get a really good insight into what might be some of the underlying reasons for the stress and depression, and I can't reel them off my tongue, but there are about 7 that we're talking about in another, and they cover everything, from anxiety around kind of financial anxiety, through to bereavement, family issues and workplace issues, and that enables that. It's that data actually helps us again to be able to kind of just put information out there that people can choose whether or not they want to kind of access, which might just help them. Yeah, so.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Innes.
Yeah, just a slightly different subject. Going back to the full-time employees, have you got figures for how many vacancies we actually have currently?
So, corporately, our HR system, and this has been historically always been, we don't hold vacancies within the system. What we do is we hold as individual budget managers. You have a staffing budget, and you will record on our financial system as to what vacancies we've got at any one point in time, because you're managing that kind of whole envelope. And what we encourage our managers to do, because I think this is about kind of operating kind of with a more commercial mind, is about if somebody's kind of leaving, don't automatically think I've got to spend that money because it's in that budget and that's an establishment. So we encourage people to think more flexibly around their kind of overall budgets and the staffing element. So we do not hold. But what and I appreciate it's a question that you kind of put it. I pulled all the data together around those specific posts that we're struggling with across the organisation, and I can also provide in terms of the number of posts that we're advertising at any point in time, if that would help. I could send those on.
Yeah, thank you. But, I just wonder what I understand what you've said about the financial part of it. Are there controls on who authorises the fact that we put an advert out? How's that process followed through?
Yeah, so we put, as a council, we put spending controls in place. I think it was the back end of 2023, actually. Yeah, December 2023, wasn't it? Yeah, where things were really getting quite tricky for us financially. Not saying they're not tricky now. Whereby, if you either want to recruit temporarily or permanently, or even offer actings up, those types of things, it has to be approved by the budget holder, it has to be approved by the finance business partner, the HR business partner, the assistant director, and the director. Now, you might think that is overkill, yes, but it just ensures that from lots of different lenses, somebody's had a look at that post. Yeah, so ultimately as the budget manager, you might go, yeah, I've got the money to be able to do this. Yeah, HR will go, is that the right post? Could you do something differently? Again, have you thought about maybe an apprenticeship, those types of things? Yeah, finance business partner. Me as an assistant director, I just like to know, yeah, and so do all the other assistant directors as to kind of what's going on. And then ultimately it goes through to the director. Yeah, so it's about the most controlled process, I think, that you could find within the council, and that's all about kind of just limiting that spend, because it is one of our biggest overheads, or the biggest overhead.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Meyer, did you have a question next? Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Just looking at the figures again, and they're when you look at the calendar figures on the chart, it's flat line. So and we're above the full-time equivalent of having people off on long-term sick or sick. What action plans do departments have in place, or do we have an overarching action plan to get those figures lower and the trend to be decreasing rather than staying flatline? Because my fear is that we just then accept that illness or that absence, and then it puts more pressure on the people that are still working, who then have to pick up that workload. So that's the question. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, it's often the people that are around you, isn't it, that get impacted the most, and sometimes then there's kind of costs because you have to cover that role with that person's off as well, or just cope without them. So we have an absence management policy, which you'd expect any organisation to have in place, which is really clear about what we class as that kind of trigger point for individuals, whether that's short-term absence or long-term absence. And managers, this is the one area that we are really strict on. Managers are expected to comply with that. So at the point that somebody's been off for a certain amount of time, there's various steps that have to take place. And HR colleagues, we've got some specific dedicated roles who just deal with absence. And they remind managers. They're like the little kind of person that's constantly kind of remind them, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. Because again, managers are busy people, obviously, and they're trying to kind of deal with everything. So they're there to give them that kind of help and support. And, you know, in the majority of cases, people get that support and it's about getting them back to work. But there are equally cases where, unfortunately, the absence levels aren't acceptable. They're not fulfilling their contract of employment. And those contracts are terminated. Through our disciplinary process. Or what is usually the case is people leave the organisation partway through.
Can I'd just add to that whilst the graph is quite small and narrow, actually the performance is that we've actually seen a positive trend over the last year of a reduction of 0.5 FTE across the whole organisation. The problem is maintaining that momentum and sustaining that performance to drive harder and faster. And it's just making sure that we can continue with the approach that we've got at the moment.
Yeah, and we do it's the one set of data that you really delve down into to look at is there something going in that particular team even? That might mean that those levels of absence, could be management style or just pressures. So that we really do scrutinise as to what's going on.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. I touched on a nerve, actually, and the gentleman over there mentioning mental health. I know we're referring to it internal, but also externally, I come from. Working in the working environment on the shop floor, then having these positions produced, line managers, charge hands, managers, I think we'll lose touch. That's my concern by having so many departments from the person that is suffering right up to the top. That needs to be looked at, and I think it's a bit of a concern. My experience in the working environment, that's exactly what I suffered. And I'm hearing a lot of that, positions and people having to do this and do that, managers, etc. It's nothing against managers, everyone's to do a job. But I just feel as though we'll lose touch a little bit by the time it gets up there. I approached County Council recently, externally, to start up a mental health club. I got no joy. I got no help. I do rent out the local Leicestershire County Library to support the local village. We're now up to 12 gentlemen. It's called Time for Men. Because people don't realise that men are suffering, but men don't know how to approach this. They don't know how to talk. We set up a website. It's just referring to what we're talking about internally. And the response has been fantastic. I've done it myself. My business pays for it. They're welcome to come. They have tea and coffee. We get all sorts of scenarios, and we're moving in the right direction, and it's directly me. None of us are experts, and that's my concern about giving people positions. And we're doing fantastic, and believe it or not, when we put it on the website, it's the wives that are sending them because men don't know how to talk, but we're getting there. And I hope that's feedback for you guys as well. We don't know how to talk. Not everybody talks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. And actually, I might contact you, actually, if that's okay. And we can have a chat about the types of things that you're doing, particularly with men's mental health and, things that, that we could learn from maybe within the organisation, because that's really interesting. And it's a definite strand, absolute strand. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. It's getting back to the absence thing. Adults and communities. I think it equates to something like 12,000 days lost a year. That has to be picked up elsewhere. I don't imagine all of it's picked up, sadly. So we don't deliver on what we're meant to deliver. Return to works. Are they done by the line manager? Because if they are, that might be part of the problem. If I expand. If you're having an issue, if you think your line manager's putting a lot of work on you when you're getting a bit of stress, you're less likely to report back to the line manager when you do your return to work. We've known about this absence, not just in this local authority, but many others about adults and communities. Been going on for years now. and still we haven't really addressed the underlying causes. I think we know the underlying causes. You've already mentioned several of them, but somehow we failed to sort of get to grips with it. And I just wonder, if you've got a return to work, you have it with either somebody from HR or somewhere else, totally separate from your department. You might give a more honest feedback and learn a lot more from these people who have been off. I mean, is a return to work done every time somebody has an absence, even if it's just one day?
So yes, the policy is that even if you've just been off for that one day, that there's when I say a return to it, there's a chat, just to talk through, are you okay? Any adjustments we need to put in place? Do you know what I mean? Those types of things. So yeah, definitely it's done. It should be done, after every absence. And it is done by the line manager. And it's interesting what you're saying. We've always, I suppose, taken the opinion that in the majority of cases, actually, it's the line manager that the individual feels most comfortable with. But then that relies on them having a good relationship, doesn't it, with that line manager? And you're absolutely right. And in some occasions, it could well be the line manager that's maybe causing, some of the kind of issues. I just need to think through in terms of.
It's worth thinking about, because a different approach might just yield different results. And I'm glad to hear you've got the processes involved when each department had a budget. There's no sort of full-time equivalent for departments. They've got the individual budgets and it goes to director. But that's not just for a new post, is it? That's for uplifting somebody or apportioning other work, or it's across the board.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from members at all? Can I just ask a quick question? I think it was probably covered in the slides, but for the reasons for absence, how is that assessed and then how is it verified?
So apologise if I misunderstood your question, but so that is data that we receive either three ways. It's either at the point the person actually rings in, because what we ask our managers to do is to go into the system and record it at that point. And based on what the individual's told them at that point, they'll pick one of those reasons. They may subsequently get maybe a doctor's certificate in that might say something different. Again, the manager needs to go into the system, update it, or it could get changed for a third time, potentially by the time that the actual return to work interview takes place. And they actually sometimes find out what the real reason is that somebody's off, which sometimes might be they've rung up with a cold, but actually, no, they're really struggling with their mental health. Do you know what I mean? And then that allows us. So there's three opportunities to make sure we try and get that data correct, in the system.
Sorry, so in terms of that, is it mostly self-assessment then, or is it then verified? Are all the sicknesses verified, like maybe by a doctor's note or that kind of thing?
No, because there are only certain sicknesses if you're off for, I'm just going to test my age, I'll just thank you, 7 days that you need a doctor's certificate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so members are asked to note the context of the presentation. Does everybody agree? Thank you. Right, so item 11 is a people strategy update on leadership and workforce development. This is on pages 43 to 46 of your agenda packs. Andrew Stewart, Head of People Services, will present this item. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is part of the people strategy where we agree quarterly that we will come and do a deep dive or a focus on one of the elements that was outlined by Lucy at the beginning of the session. I'll take the paper as read. The purpose of the report is to update the Employment Committee on the progress made in relation to leadership and workforce development, specific projects which are part of the Council's people strategy. I just wanted to focus on the main achievement that has been undertaken in the last year, which has been the procurement and implementation of a new learning management system, moving from Learning Pool to Thrive, which has been and our system is called the Learning Hub, which is an online platform that manages bookings and e-learning content for all our staffs, which has been a significant undertaking from that point of view. It has been a success. We've received a very positive feedback on the new system, very user-friendly and much more intuitive from a user perspective. And we have seen lots of users and accesses as part of it. One of the other benefits is that a manager receives a weekly update about who's non-compliant with their training from the system, and it automatically generates a reminder. As Mr. Innes said, we're looking at the opportunities that presents in terms of what we could do for APR as well. What we're looking to, so it's just to note the undertaking, and that has now been completed. The next steps of that is to utilise the system to make further leverage of the functionality, which includes promoting direct access for options for employees to access training as and when they want it and need it. So it can be accessed through an app, it can be done at home, it can be done wherever you want and need it to be undertaken. And then also enhancing and developing the data reporting capabilities, because that's the bit we're focusing on now to give you assurance around compliance on statutory and mandatory training is the next point that we're looking at. The other bit, so in terms of completion of other projects, we are focusing now on the development of a talent approach for the council to create a comprehensive talent strategy that supports employee retention and development. This approach also provides clear pathways and events for young people to enter entry-level roles and apprenticeships within those organisations to look to redress our ageing workforce profile. It's also focusing on enhancing our leadership and development and management offer, so that we're supporting managers and leaders within the organisation to make sure that they've had the development, so that individuals, where they are promoted, they are given that support to step into the role. Where people have been in an existing role, it's to make sure that they have the right network, the right support, coaching, support as part of that, and then support people to facilitate change and actually look at operational efficiency, so that we've got a consistent methodologies around how we support our staff and develop them from that point of view. So those are my points with regards to the paper. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? Sorry, Mr. Lovegrove.
Just a quick one, Chair. Thank you for that. I don't know whether it's actually relevant to this report, but it just popped into my mind that March 2020, the world changed with COVID, and majority of the country now, or the world, where office-based workers are concerned, they're blended contracts, so working from home and in an office-based situation. My understanding is that the county council still are pursuing that as a way of taking on new employees, mental health and everything that, and so office-based workers will have usually a blend, depends on their job role, a blended role, working from home and working from an office when needed. Thank you.
Yeah, you are correct. The world changed, didn't it, dramatically? I can remember where, the majority of our staff didn't even have a laptop, and then overnight they were all sent home and they're having to borrow the neighbours' iPads and you name it. So so all of our staff, office-based staff, do now have laptops, so they have the opportunity to work from various different bases. Because let's remember, we don't just have County Hall. We've got lots of other kind of office space which is out in the kind of communities that we serve, and so whether it's just more economical for them or environmentally, or they're just closer to the service user that they're going to see, and then they need to drop back into a kind of a touchdown point. But County Hall remains our kind of main space. And there has been a lot of change in that. More of our staff have got kind of hybrid, what we call hybrid working contracts, where they're able to spend time working from the office or from elsewhere. There is a piece of work that I'm undertaking at the moment with our senior management teams and through our departments, because I think with any policy, you need to kind of, and we call it our smarter working policy. With any policy like that, you need to make sure that it's still relevant. Because what was happening pre-2020 is completely different to what happened during then and where we're at now in 2025. And, you know, and I can't open a newspaper or turn the news on without there being some kind of media report or some research into productivity around kind of remote working and all those types of things. And as an organisation, you know, we need to make sure we've got it right. We really do. There's been lots of benefits from it, you know, in terms of us being able to recruit some of our harder to fill posts with people who maybe work outside of the county. But there are disadvantages. You know, people do say that, you know, the kind of, for some individuals, kind of, you know, they really miss the interaction with colleagues. You know, I do worry about some people that are coming into the careers and all they've ever known is a bit more working at, you know, is more working at home. And how do they understand the etiquette of kind of just the working environment and that type. So that's the piece of work that we're doing at the moment, is just making sure that we've got it right in terms of our expectations of our employees, and that it may, you know, it may be that there are certain tasks which are just better done face to face, that they really are. And so, yeah, the outcomes of kind of all that work that I'm doing at the moment, probably during the summer will come out, and it'd be useful then to talk that through with the Employment Committee as well.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, just one question. If the new contract is the same price as the old one, what wasn't the learning pool providing?
I think systems had moved on in a way, and it was seeing what more we could get for our bang for our buck in terms of the technology had moved on, and we needed to upgrade and move to a new system. It's a bit like moving from Microsoft products from the Windows upgrade. We needed to upgrade. We either needed to upgrade the learning pool, or we needed to move to another system, and we made the decision to move to another system because we felt that offered more benefit and opportunity with the system capabilities to our staff. So we are getting much more, and it's much more user friendly than the old system was. It's a bit more like it's a bit more intuitive, like the social media platforms. It's built around that sort of setup, and we're looking at so we are getting more benefit for spending the same money.
Thank you, Mr. Ince.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on the working place, as it were, and I fully agree with what you're saying. I think the circumstances change, and I think what we need to understand is what's right for the organisation and what's right for the individual, and get that balance right, because I know from my own experience, I flourish when I've got people around me. When I'm sitting on my own, it can be quite isolating. It can be quite difficult to concentrate, and I think if we look back before COVID, there was a reason why we worked together, and that was because you had that social contact and you had that ability to bounce ideas off each other, etc. So I welcome that review, and I think it's something that certainly we will be working with you in a lot of detail on in the future.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions at all? Okay, so does everybody agree? Thank you. Okay, so the final report today is the Organisational Change Policy and Procedure Action Plans. This is on pages 47 to 52 of your agenda packs. Damien Buckley, Democratic Services Officer, will present this item. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to present the Employment Committee with an update of the current action plans, which contain provision for compulsory redundancy and details of their progress on their implementation. I just present this as a person from the Chief Exec's Department, and members are just asked to note the contents of the report and the 2 appendices.
Any members have any questions at all? Thank you. Okay, members are asked to note the current action plans which contain provision for compulsory redundancy and details of progress in their implementation. Does everyone agree? Thank you. Okay, so the next meeting of the committee is scheduled to be held on the 18th of September 2025 at 10 o'clock. Any other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent? There are no urgent items. And that brings the meeting to a close. Thank you all very much for attending.